increase in the programme. We're going to spend $30.63 million by the end of the year in capital. So that's a summary of all the information which we took through the workshop the other week.
Thank you. Questions?
Recent programme, we're going to spend $30.63 million by the end of the year in capital. So it's a summary of all the information which we took through the workshop. Right.
Sorry for that.
Oh, wonderful.
Makes your voice sound
I thought it was else.
Councillor, just sorry, through you, Madam Mayor. I've just texted to say that I hadn't, the audio wasn't working, so I just had to correct it. And so, unfortunately, we'll have a few items that there will be no audio on the streaming. That's my bad. But it should be fixed now.
Would you like to keep going?
I think so.
Okay. Councillor Bird, you have a question.
Madam Mayor, there's an increase in $84,000 to the workers, the increased expense for workers' compensation. That's rather extraordinarily large. Is that due to extra staff, or is it back pay, or is it a back adjustment?
I think my understanding is there's a number of issues just in talking.
Yes, so the workers' compensation policy, so the premium is calculated based on salaries, increases in that. Obviously, we've had staff positions filled since the last financial year when the premium was created. But then also we've had some longer term ongoing injury claims, which are now starting to cease, which is a good thing. We haven't had any new ones. So whilst there was a large increase for the current financial year, we are looking to hopefully see that stabilise in future years. And yeah, there was just like that salary increase by filling because they have been very high initially.
So it's an adjustment back for what they were predicted to.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Clutton.
Thank you very much, Councillor. This is not directly on it, but it is because each month we've had an increase in expenses, and that's somewhat expected. We're dealing with the long-term financial plan that it'll later meet, we're having a full meeting about. My view is I think we've got to factor in an increase in expenses in this, but I think inflation is at a level that none of the future planning has properly brought into account, and that's probably evident alone just in fuel pricing and things like that. It's a big issue. The fact that we run 5 graders and we've got a lot of heavy plant that does work around roads and stuff. Everywhere you look in the economy at the moment, it's difficult to control expenses, and I just serve to make this as a note that I think with our planning and our current trend, we've got to be very aware that we may be having this conversation pretty regularly.
Any other questions? Do we have
Apologies.
That's quite all right. Do we have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Clutton. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Peterson. All those in favour? 10.5, appointment of audit risk and improvement committee.
Madam Mayor, this is work going through the year, where we determined by council to invite the previous members of the ARA committee, including the chair, to, if they wish to, re-nominate and then appoint them. We have 4 members of the ARA committee, independent members on the ARA committee, of which only in the last 12 months or 18 months or so, there's only been 3 filled. So council operationally has set out expressions of interest and advertising for expressions of interest. 3 applicants that have put in expressions of interest to become the 4th independent member. There's some discussion at the last ARIC committee meeting held on the 7th of April around the balance of skills, and there was a desire to get someone in who had quite a strong risk background, because there was felt there was probably good skills around the finances on that committee. So as a result, the recommendation is to appoint Ms. Justine Keach as the fourth independent member of the ARIC committee. And note that there's an opportunity for a period of transition with those others who have been, who have applied, can be invited by the chair of ARIC to come in and observe, and they could also be on a list to be appointed should there be any resignations from the ARIC committee of other independent members, should they happen over the current term of council. The recommendations should be considered as read, and I'll leave that to the council.
Questions? No question?
It's just a comment, Madam Mayor, for fellow councillors that struggling here. There seems to be some differences in the numbering of the recommendations, whether it's 10.5 on some, 10.6 on other, depending on which version of the agenda you're looking at.
If I may, through Madam Mayor, the PDF is out of order. So I've got the PDF.
Okay, most importantly, do we have the actual recommendation, regardless of also
Yeah, so it was, just through Madam Mayor, I had put it down into confidential. The public agenda went out, and it was left in the public area, but we've kept the attachments as confidential attachments. So that's introduction of the internal meeting agenda to the public meeting agenda that since I get skewed, so my apologies. There's nothing preventing this to be considered in open council, given that the attachments are not in public council. So there was 3 applications in the attachment, which are in the attachments of the report, and the recommendation is for Justin Keach to be appointed as the fourth independent member.
question, Councillor Cotton?
Madam Mayor, made this decision on the 3 to choose one over the 3.
This is a recommendation based on the assessment of the executive team of the 3 applications, but it doesn't mean that council has to appoint, that was to follow that recommendation.
So yeah, I'm not sure whether confidential.
These were attached. Sorry, Madam
Do you have a question, Councillor?
Madam Mayor, just a question in regards to the applicants. Are they actually interviewed, or is it purely taken off their application?
Taken off your application.
And is there a probation period for that?
It might be, Mr. Briscoe might give some further details, but this is a committee of council that is obviously important as the audit risk in the committee. And much like other committees, we don't do a formal recruitment process. We seek expressions of interest out to the public. And the obviously being in a small community, we might go to a little bit more information if these people were unknown to councillors and the general public, that all 3 of these people and their applications are put forward, including response to selection.
Thanks very much. I'll come forward so it doesn't look like it's a disembodied voice. It's a decision of council. The executive has made a recommendation which you are at liberty to accept or reject. In terms of probationary period, Councillor Peterson, there's nothing to stop council from taking anyone off any committee at any time, but you want to have good reasons to do so. And maybe Eric only meets 4 times a year, but if you didn't turn up for 3 of the 4 meetings, you might consider that person, you know, it might need replacement or something like that. But it would really only be, you know, it's the same with the 355 committees or any of the other advisory committees we have, you know, outside of serious misconduct or, you know, not declaring any interest or things like that. You probably wouldn't replace someone, but yeah. But as the general manager said, this is council's decision to appoint people, and the recommendation is just that, the recommendation.
So the recommendation is there. We have no further questions. Would somebody like to?
Just a question, Madam Mayor. Item 4 of the recommendation says that it's been based on the general advice of the existing ARIC members. So ARIC has met. Did ARIC discuss this, or fellow ARIC members can respond?
Councillor Harold or Paul, have you attended? Yeah.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. The comment was made that we've got enough accountants on the ARIC board at the moment, and we needed someone with a different set of skills. And then I mentioned, because it's such a great portion of the ARIC work is on risk, that we to have someone that can identify risk and works with risk all the time would be a welcome addition. And it was widely agreed that yes, to have someone that could help us with risk. Right. And we can see that in the future there'll be other committee members that will be retiring in the next 12 months. And then I think, you know, we'll be able to get that council influence in. And just one other comment, you know, I think we should have more gender diversity in all boards and in committees, and I think and you've got to be very careful because you can become biased towards females. But I just think it'd be lovely to have a woman on this. A lot of this local government is dominated by many middle-aged men with grey suits, and important. And I think it's great to get ladies into these positions.
Can I just add to that, Madam Mayor, that it was generally discussed about the type of skills, and that's what I mentioned in my preamble, which is really what point 4 is saying. It's advice from the existing ARIC committee members around the type of skills that they thought was as the Deputy Mayor said. So rather than discussing the applications themselves, just about the type of skills.
Okay. Councillor Bird.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Peter McCrabb had been a councillor and did express interest on the day he attended a council meeting to be on the committee. I absolutely agree with Justine Peach. I think that's an excellent suggestion. But I would have thought a lot of the risk is around the seniors living, and I might have, I wonder if the committee considered that his input, having been on council during the implementation of that, was that considered that he may have been an asset in that area to think about.
Could I respond through you?
Through you, Madam Mayor. That was discussed. The committee is acutely aware of the issues surrounding the seniors living. The 3 previous independent were all involved in the seniors living project since inception, including the chair, Peter Ray, Graham Bradley, and John 2000. I've been aware of the financial implications of the senior living since the beginning. process now. Well, whilst the comment is absolutely appropriate, I don't think Eric has lost any of its past
Thank you.
access to information.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the risk, and this is was an education for me. When they talk about risk, it's the complete risk with the organisation. It's the risk with hiring contract. It's a risk with doing the garbage collection. Like it's the whole risk of the organisation.
I understand that.
Any other questions? Recommendation is there. Would somebody like to move the recommendation? Deputy Mayor Fellows moves the recommendation. Would somebody like to second? Councillor Clapton would like to second it. All those in favour? Against?
Madam Mayor, can I just interject for a moment? Could I suggest that we follow the numbering of the public agenda, the one that's on the website, to avoid any further confusion for items today? So if you haven't got access to the website, it's only this one thing, but it just brings everything out of sequence. So I was just going to say, to the general public's point of view, and for all of us later on, follow the one that's published on our website might be advantageous.
Is that this one, Brett?
It will have the ARIC as 10.5.
That's correct. And I've got 10.6 investment policy review as the next item. Yep. All right. We'll keep moving forward. 10.6 investment policy review.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. It's good practice for councils to review the policies on a regular basis. And investment policy was due last year in 2019. It's a little bit overdue. And it's been a comprehensive review taken by the finance team with the assistance of Imperial, the consulting group. There's a number of changes to the policy, which I would label as not really significant, but expansionary. Indeed, a summary of these changes is contained in the report on page 215 of the papers. And the key focus was to minimise the reinvestment risk by providing more flexibility to allow us to invest in longer term investments, while of course taking credit right into account. And that's because you're currently operating in an environment of sustained low interest rates, and the current policy is not suited for this environment. And it tends to place restrictive limits on a portfolio and the limit we can put in our long-term deposits. The biggest risk we identified is the reinvestment risk, as I said, whereas if we reinvest the funds, we're getting progressively lower returns, and the returns for longer term investments, 2 to 5 years, are much higher though than those in 1 year and below, which is usually a sign that the market is changing. So the proposed changes, along with the updated investments policy, were reviewed and endorsed by the executive team at the end of February at this meeting, and ARIC comprehensively reviewed them on the 7th of April. And there was also a couple of minor word changes. So with that, the revised investment policy is tabled for adoption by Council.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Birch.
Through you, Madam Mayor. In the summary of the proposed changes, it says delegation of authority, that the delegation is with the general manager and the responsible accounting officer. Is that not one and the same at the moment? No. Who's the responsible accounting officer? Oh, thank you. Thanks for that clarification.
Through you, Madam Mayor.
DM.
So, Alistair, we're getting the rate is around 0.7% now on our 12-month rate.
About that, yeah.
And we're looking at, so 2 to 3 years, it's going to be 1.5.
About that, yeah. It all depends on the day, when we invest in the day at the time.
So we're basically going to double our.
As a good shot, yes. There is, but the issue there is we can't invest longer term when we've still got short-term lease, we're balance offer operation lease with what we can put away longer term. So that all gets looked at in the mix. But this, currently our policy says, no, we've got to go short-term. The revised one will allow us to go longer term and get better returns. It's more flexibility. Yeah. But I think the point you're making is,
Yeah, well, there's going to be more money, but we're responding to the market.
yeah, correct.
Which is good.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Recommendations there, do we have to move on? Councillor Fawns. Yeah, second, all those in favour? 10.7, General Manager leave.
So, through Madam Mayor, this is in accordance with the Local Government Act. Every time I take a period, it's not a very long period of time, but every time I take a period of leave, council needs to resolve to assign functions and a delegation of powers that are vested in me to the nominated director, in this case, the Director of Infrastructure to be acting General Manager from the 5th of May to the 9th of May.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Bird.
Sorry, I'm just, through you, Madam Mayor, just learning process for a new councillor. Is that normally to the Director of Infrastructure, who I think is a fine person, but is it normally that way, or is it to Director of Corporate Services, or who does it usually go to?
It's up to the General Manager as to who he recommends, but
Is there a standard procedure though?
not really. It's generally one of the directors, and my current practice will be to sort of rotate that around to give both directors experience to step up into the space. So yeah, in this case, we've got an interim Director of Corporate Services, so I'm going to recommend that Mr. Dalzell take on the role.
General Manager, just to clarify, that is from midnight at the beginning of May until midnight on the 9th of May. Yes. Mr. Dalzell, are you happy to provide us with your contact details for those dates?
Absolutely. So I'll send that information out.
You should have all that. Any other questions? Recommendations there. Somebody like to move? Councillor Bird, seconded by Councillor Moore. In favour of the General Manager having some leave.
I'll be able to meet my mother. Go and pick her up. So she can
Oh, no. All righty, 10.8 Health Services Advisory Committee.
I'd like to offer Mr. Briscoe Huff the opportunity to introduce this board.
Councillors, further to our briefing we had last week and comments received since, I've just put the recommendation as is, but it's very much for you guys, for you as a corporate body to make a decision. I do notice in my own recommendations, I haven't mentioned the specific services like the police ambulance and those sorts of people, but that's this is just a starting point for you to make these. And again, the attached terms of reference, again, are just starting points for you. My understanding from our discussions last week was that we would invite people and then they would look at the terms of reference and refocus them. The only thing I would mention is that this is an advisory committee, so it doesn't speak on behalf of council until council receives its minutes and endorses them. So it's that's just the procedural nicety of it, is that it is a forum for them to discuss and advise council, and then just like any of our recommendations as council officers come to you to be decided upon, it's the same with their minutes. So they will report to you, they'll make recommendations, and then council will then adopt the minutes, and if they want to pursue those recommendations or do so, if they want to change them, you're empowered to do that as well.
Sorry, can I just clarify? When, with the first one, just given what went in Thursday's paper, and it's caused quite a bit of angst in the community, it made it read like it was a council-only committee, which is everything against what we discussed in length, and we were talking about the amount of outside people that we would have on it. Just with one, so did you do this before that went in the paper or after? So I just want to clarify to the community that it's definitely not a councillor-only committee. It's far from what, and the papers.
Yeah, no, that was never been my understanding of it. And as I just discussed now, that was the discussions we had.
And that wasn't my interpretation of what the papers there. But it wasn't just the council.
Well, so it actually read councillor-only is how it is.
No, that's never been from day one.
Just through you, Madam Mayor, it might be an opportunity that you can clarify point 1 to actually send invitations out and the committees you wish to, the council wishes to invite into the, as a matter of clarification. So, Murrumbidgee Local Health District is invited as well.
Do we want to have that thoughts, discussions on clarifying point 1 about who we want to include in there, councillor?
Through the Madam Mayor, thank you very much. Important. The council and council representatives will be a minority on this committee. There is no way that the council can take ownership or influence this committee beyond the majority of those independent members of the seat. That needs to be clarified and it needs to be in the public domain. That's the intention of the council. We really want that to be part of the process.
Great, thank you very much. Councillor Burge.
Through you, Madam Mayor, there was an article in last Thursday's paper. I was contacted by the Pastoral Times, and I've already spoken to a senior officer there regarding that article. I asked not to be called Councillor Burge in it. It was my own personal view, and the article was to go to print several weeks later after we had decided whether there was a health service committee or not. So I just want that clarified. I've already made a complaint to the paper regarding that, not that that will have much impact. However, I do have an issue with item 1. It says authorise the mayor to issue letters of invitation for membership of the Health Services Advisory Group and to executive members. I think the discussion needs to be had that that's not just a captain's pick from the mayor, that we actually include every the relevant health services. So I feel that we need some input on that, whether it's in a briefing or what. Just to
interrupt, that's exactly what we've agreed. This is only a formality. So what we agreed was exactly, it's the input of the councillors as to who is included. The formality is simply the letter goes out from the mayor, but it's decided by the councillors.
Thank you.
We might adjust the wording in number 1 then.
Thank you.
Councillor,
through you, Madam Mayor. I would just like to ask, is the letters of invitation open for, is the committee open for requests to join? You know, it's not just about the invitation, direct invitation. Just want to make sure that it, you know, is it open for requests? I don't know how to word that.
This is seen as a preliminary establishment, which is what's in the title. So the first step would be for those letters would be issued by the council, but under the mayor's signature. So it's really to clarify that the first steps were to bring in all of the existing local health groups and what I understood to be Murrumbidgee Local Health Group as well, appoint interested councillors to that, and then at that point that group of people will decide who else could be invited, which would be the machinations around the terms of reference. So the third point, modify as appropriate the draft terms of reference, which you could invite 4 or 5 other groups or interested parties. Or albeit, like Councillor Moore may have inferred, was just to see if there's anyone else who's interested in going on it. So it's the preliminary establishment, which would be the first obvious groups that would join from the.
Just one sec, councillor Buttons before you.
In the preamble, I sent through to councillors, I actually specified that it should be for properly constituted representative health bodies. They're already in the community and we're aware of them. It's not for somebody to turn around and have a meeting on Friday and say, broken down cricketers association. That was in the preamble.
Thank you.
I think from the preamble we had, it would be one person per registered health group that would nominate to join this committee, so that we could actually bring all the committees together to move forward in the health services plan, as opposed to every single committee is still trying to do something for each other, that we actually can move forward. We've been stuck for that for 10, 15 years and not getting anywhere in the health system in town. That makes it a bit easier.
So if you don't mind, councillor Platten, so you had me reading out what you suggested in your, it's a 2 by councillors, 1 by First Nations rep, 1 member of each of the health groups, 1 New South Wales ambulance into each.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I just wanted to clarify my, just the rewording. I just didn't want it to look like that we were speaking to.
Oh,
That's all.
yes, no, thank you. Yeah, no, it's just, it's going to be hard to capture everybody, and I think as it goes along. So, did we actually want to change the wording in one of the recommendation, Councillor Platten?
Councillor, I'm actually happy to recommend the motion as it is in the books, because I think there's a clear understanding amongst all of the councillors as to what we're trying to achieve. And this is a preliminary establishment of the committee, not the establishment of the ultimate working body.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right, having said that, then no other questions. The recommendations there.
I was just asking whether Councillor Clapham was going to move that.
Yeah.
Bring it back to
Good discussion. No, thank you. You're moving the recommendation, Councillor Clapham. Yes, thank you. Somebody like to second the recommendation? Councillor Ford, thank you. All those in favour? 10.9, new partnership agreement between Service New South Wales and Edinburgh Council.
Yes, through Madam Mayor, this report is a renewal of a partnership agreement between Service New South Wales and Edinburgh Council. There's been, we've had an agreement in place for a number of years to promote and provide access to New South Wales government services, information for particularly for business owners, and to support the local economy. So this is a renewal of that. No cost to council, just a renewal of the service agreement between ourselves and the state government. Recommendation is there, and you can see the summary of those types of services that are provided in the report.
Thank you. Questions? Recommendations there. Would somebody like to move the recommendation? Councillor Forbiddy, seconded by Councillor Moore. All those in favour? 3.10, reallocate 2021 Denny Youth Muster event contribution.
So, is anyone from our economic development team? We'll take an additional day off after Easter, so that's right. I'll have to carry this. This is a proposal that's been put forward to council based on the potential for a signature event to be held in December. We can't, I suppose the nature of that event is embargoed, but let's say it'll be quite high level and quite attractive, particularly the timing. So the Plain Plains Festival has asked whether, or has proposed to reallocate the financial contribution of $25,000 in this current financial year, which was due to be allocated to the Denny Youth Muster last year and has since been cancelled due to the COVID, to reallocate that to contribute towards this new event that is about to be announced quite soon. So the recommendation is there. There'll be no implications to council's financial budget because it's already been budgeted for and it has not been spent. And any contribution from the next year will be coming out of the next financial years. The recommendation is there for councillors to consider.
Questions?
I'll move the recommendation.
Councillor Fogarty. All those in favour?
Madam Mayor, I just wanted to say, to reallocate these funds to support this specific event, I think it's absolutely fabulous because we need to make as a town use of the facilities that we have over the last couple of years missed out on. And I just think it's just a wonderful opportunity for, you know, to help them to continue. It was such a disappointment with the numbers that we got for Plains. And I really hope that we're able to, you know, move forward and try again, just for the economic benefit of them and surrounds, to have those people come to town at either end of the year. I just think it's just fantastic. It's peak time, so whatever we can do to help.
Very well said. Well done. All right, 10.11, DA dog breeding facility. Marie.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the DA 8221 for the dog breeding facility at 383 Berger Road. The facility is for 120 breeding dogs and 100 puppies. And the recommendation is the council approved development application 82 for the dog breeding facility at 383 Bergen Road as shown in the plans, and details accompanying the development application in accordance with section 416 of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act and subject to the following reasons. The proposed development is permissible within the zone under the Pinnaco LEP 213 and complies with the provisions of this environmental planning instrument, and a proposed development subject to the imposition of conditions is not likely to have any unreasonable impact on the environment, and where adverse impacts have been identified, appropriate conditions have been imposed to mitigate the effects and impose the conditions as detailed in attachment 1.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Peterson.
We've got for 120 dogs and 100 puppies, so that's 220 animals on that site. Okay.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I think I've asked the question before, Murray, and just to clarify, the waste material machine, we didn't see any sight of that when we went out there. Is that a requisite for it to be there now or to when it's rebuilt?
So one of the conditions contained in the consent is that we have asked for a time frame of when all of those things would be in place. We would expect that would be probably, we would force it to be in place before the expansion. I think they'd be working towards getting it installed prior to that, because then
Yes, I just wondered because we didn't. I wish I should have asked them when I was there.
Yeah. So we'll negotiate when we're doing the time frames and ask that be sort of put up a little bit earlier.
Any other questions? Recommendations there, would somebody like to move it? Councillor Buckland is happy to move it, would somebody like to second it? Councillor Collins, we'll go around the room. Sorry, did you wish to speak, Councillor Poppy?
I do. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I sincerely congratulate the staff on the work that they have done. I think between yourself, Mari, and Eliza, you've done an amazing job on the DA. And you've certainly put some conditions around it to comply. I just have some serious concerns in regards to this development. And I think sometimes, although it fits with all of the planning and there is nothing in terms of planning, which your recommendation clearly demonstrates that there is nothing in terms of planning that would prevent us from approving this. I just feel on grounds of well-being to the animals and to the environment and to us as a community, I cannot go along with the recommendation and approve this and speak against approving it. I think sometimes we just have to be brave and step outside of our comfort zone and maybe push these things a bit harder, that possibly the state government may pick up on it and start to consider legislation similar to Victoria that prevents these types of developments occurring. In my time on council, I've never seen so many objections coming through. 33 objections in 14 days is an extraordinary amount. From discussions that I've had with people in the community, it's obvious to me that quite a number of people in the community do not approve of this facility going ahead. And my personal view is that we need to take a stand and oppose this development on those grounds and let it run its course and see what happens from here on in.
Thank you. As the mover, Councillor Clapham, is there something else you'd like to say in response to that?
I absolutely respect Councillor Fogarty's degrees, and I think the issues that all thinking people struggle with. Unfortunately, there are many industries that I disagree with vehemently that are within the parameters of society to deal with, and I would put poker machines and gambling as a much greater risk to the community than dog breeding. But unfortunately, we live in a society where we're bound by a rules-based system, and as much as there are things I disagree with about this thing, I think we can't be open for business on the basis that we choose which businesses we're open to. And we have to accept all businesses, and our role as councils are to promote business and let people know that if you comply with all of the rules and regulations and meet all of the council stipulations about your ability to conduct and undertake your business in this council, we as a council will support you to run your business and pursue your livelihood, whatever that business may be.
Speakers against the motion?
Well, on emergency services plan base, I've just had another quick look. If we have a bushfire that's coming through a grass fire, those animals that are caged, how are they all to be evacuated out in a quick process? I couldn't find that actually listed how they would be got off the property or to a safe location as opposed to just catching a cage on fire.
Sorry, thank you. I'm through this. Yeah, sorry. So in that instance, it becomes more of an emergency management response. Rather than some combat agency for fire. They also have, in terms of animals, this would be the same with dogs or with sheep or any animals. The local land service will also provide support in that area. So there's been other floods and fire events in the past where LLS have come in with RFS to temporarily rehire animals. So in this instance, with that sort of event, RFS would coordinate it, and LLS would come in and work with the property owners to rehire the animals during that time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak against the motion? We have a move and second. Anyone else wishes to speak against? Around the room, falls and against. Councillor Burge.
Against.
Against.
I'm for. Right, the 10.11 dog breeding facility recommendation. 10.12 development services report.
The Development Services Activity Report is detailed for the month of March. There's details of development applications and construction certificates approved, other activities, inspections, pool inspections, pool inspections and certificates issued. There is details of the ranger activities and public health activities found taken by the Development Services Department, and that information is supplied for information.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions in relation to the development services report? Recommendations there. Would somebody like to move the recommendation? Councillor Thorne, somebody like to second? Councillor Moore. All those in favour? 10.13 major projects report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is the regular monthly report on progress of major projects, being mainly the grant funded projects. Part of the report, the table that we normally include for councillors has been updated, showing current funding programs and the amounts remaining in those programs. Where there's a few rows there that doesn't have sort of a figure remaining, where it says total remaining, so that means everything, there hasn't been any expenditure against that program to date. Note from previous discussions that councillors are requesting further information, background information on the funding programs, and so we can provide that information. I've requested that from staff, so as soon as that's together, I'll send that out to councillors and at a later date. In terms of projects, upgrade work, especially regarding the amenities block and the access roads and car parking. Very much aware with those projects of the need for further consultation with the group. So since the previous report, we've started working on those projects, and to a point that we'll now go to the groups shortly. Just to keep them updated with how those projects are going and the outcomes, to make sure that we are delivering facilities for the users. The other project, not reported in here, is just with the town hall. It's been discussed by council and highlighted at the last briefing session regarding the progress of that. So there's still contractors still working through the issue with the floor in the town hall. We're expecting further information from the information from the contractor very shortly regarding that. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Dalzell? That's all for you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mark, I just noticed in our Riversound region, we've got a small amount of money, it's 4,700 remaining. I've had lots of requests from people around additional rubbish bins and particularly around providing fleeces bags for animals. There are a lot of dogs that have walked along the beach to beach walk, and given that primarily a lot of this money has been spent on that area, I'm just wondering, that small bit of remaining money, could that go to some additional bins and the provision of those feces bags along that area?
Through you, Madam Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Fogarty. Absolutely, as you've noted, our rivers, our region has been focused on that river front, especially with the pontoons and the development of the Utamapol rest area. So, provision of bins there at the top of the stairs. So where the stairs come up, there's an area there that we can construct a pad and put a bin with the same enclosure as we use. So I've been talking with the staff through that, so they're just putting that together for us, as well as we've been down at the lower north area. It's been highlighted to me that there has been bins there in the past. We can access those areas, so it has been a concern. Whilst we understand the request for bins, we also need to make sure for our own staff that we can service those bins, and that. So I think those locations work well. In terms of the bags, for council, that's a maintenance issue. So we'll just need to bring that into the day-to-day operations. Now we do have that facility over at the off-leash dog park. It's being used that, so we've got a little bit of information on how the community would use such a facility. To a point, yeah, I support looking at putting Wendy along the walk as well. We'll just continue to monitor that, see if it's used or not, because while small, the provision of that service does come at an ongoing cost to council, but it's something we'll do and just keep an eye on.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Mark, it's been brought up to me a few times now about a charging station in the garden area for people, for phones or for computers or whatever it is. It's come to my attention that the stairwell under the rotunda is accessible when the power is constant and power points are available at any time, and children actually sit under those stairs and charge their devices currently, which I think is quite an unsafe location to be charging. And it would be lovely if we could have access, because we do have a lot of people using our beautiful gardens. They have maybe a solar station for charging.
Through you, Madam Mayor, thanks, Councillor Moore. Yeah, that's not something I've thought of, so a fantastic inquiry and suggestion for this. We definitely don't want a situation where the community would undertake sort of an unsafe practice, and we are one of the projects we have there is the refurbishment of the rotunda. So make sure to fund that work if that can't be done. But there are areas, the undercover barbecue area, and I'm just trying to think on the other side, but I'm very happy to take that on board and look at how we can implement that into the gardens. I agree it would provide a good service back to the community.
Any other questions? Oh, recommendations there. Would somebody like to move the recommendations? Councillor Moore, would you like to second that? All those in favour? Aye. Does anybody wish to speak? Carried. Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. 10.14 operations progress report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The regular report regarding the activities of Council's operations department, so mainly the maintenance of facilities and assets. In summary, maintenance work has continued over the past months, in terms of road maintenance and gravel re-sheeting. So some of those programs are progressing well, along with the parks and gardens and buildings. We do note as we come towards the end of the year and into more winter period that we see, especially after the rainfall that we had over the weekend, to start very mindful of the impact of the rain on the gravel program. I'd estimate that over the next month or so, that there'll be more maintenance grading activities due to the rainfall and impact on the roads, especially after a period of a longer period of dry areas. So we started just clicking on that and responding to customer service requests as they come in. It's unlikely that that will impact any other parts of the program.
Questions for Mr. Dalzell? Councillor Foggy.
Look, it's an observation, and it looks like the weed is spreading into the next lagoon behind the childcare centre and Arana. Is that observation correct, or is that some other weed? Have you got a body? And can we do something before it takes over?
Through that there, thanks, Councillor Foggy. Absolutely, that's something I've noted as well with the staff. It is a different weed, whereas the weed that we've had in Warra Gardens sort of grows up through. This seems much more of a carpet type weed. I think it's moved a little bit with the rainfall we've had over the last couple of days, come down a bit more to the outlet. Especially the lagoon in the Dr. Park area, which is behind the library, and then also behind the page. So, given our experiences and learnings over the last 2 years with weeds in the lagoons, definitely talking with the staff to get on top of it before it really sort of starts flourishing and that. So, I'll definitely sort of pass on your observations. I'll go with mine, walking along there, and we'll start to
Thank you. Councillor Peterson.
Madam Mayor, can we put razor wire or electrified playground gates?
I'm not answering that.
I mean, it just seems I don't know how to do this.
Thanks, Ken. Look, in general, it does highlight for us an issue around vandalism and trying to get on top of it. So, just the council's information, our general processes around it is with vandalism, we go and repair it. We feel we've got more energy on behalf of the community than the people who unfortunately undertake those activities. We have been reviewing or look at also additional CCTV. Not operationally, not the best way, but it has in the past been effective. So yeah, it does, and the police working really well with council. So we definitely want to keep that going. But yeah, just that vandalism just on a whole, where we notice it, you get police numbers for that. We repair, try and keep it in good condition, discourages it, and then releases.
Just to clarify for the live stream and for Laura, the answer was no. To the Thank you, Myra. Just to clarify, they didn't pick up Mr. Bell's voice.
Yeah, I was a bit low.
Mr. Douglas, just, well, I guess one of those with CCTV, are we able to make sure they're good quality? We can't name and shame the vandals in town, but can we put their photos on the council website saying, do you know these vandals? And we can notify the police. But on the other side of that, how are we going with the delays in the projects because of the works or repairs that there's repairs? How are we going with that regard?
Thanks, Councillor Beeson. For the first part of it, any enforcement action is a police action. So we pass that information on and work with the police. In terms of the second part, information provided by staff is that sort of our plan to that isn't impacting our works. We do feel as we come into the change of season, we'll get some impacts from rain and that. I have actually managed operations this morning for an update because we've got a number of roadworks open at the moment, but the information was passed on that there may be a day impact or that on our work. So at the moment, it seems like we're coming off impacts with deliveries and those COVID related ones. So still impacting the while, but it's certainly listening, but generally not seeing a lot of impact on council's continuing works.
That's all. Through you, Madam Mayor, just capture you in time, I could have just stayed standing. Just off the bat of Pat's comments about the weeds earlier in the I've had a number of locals mention to me, or ask me about the weed management in developable areas for cowheads and the khaki weed that we have. I know that it was always in the south area of town. I'm not sure it's up to now. I know that it's everywhere. The khaki weed is just shocking. I'm just wondering where we're at with weed management in town.
Through that, thanks, Councillor Moore. So weeds in town are an interesting point in that generally with weeds and through the Weeds Action Program, it is dealing with noxious weeds. You know, they're the ones that major impact and the regulatory and legislative requirements on council, so they get managed. Cat's heads and khaki weed aren't noxious, so council doesn't get any funding to assist with that. So we have had and we continue to have mainly khaki weed programs. We do go around and spraying areas. Now that is generally focused on public areas, and where we have sort of need to work with the community in that around is in nature strips and that. So generally, nature strips, yes, they are public land, but we work with the adjoining property owners. So where there's khaki weed in those areas, yeah, we're working with an expectation that the adjoining property owners manage that. But we're more than happy for our parks and garden staff, if there are big areas like that, to work with the parks and garden staff, so we may have resources available to go and hit bad infestations of it. Yeah, you know, we definitely don't want it running rampant in any areas of town. It just comes around resource availability and focusing on those public areas.
Thank you. Sorry, so I've been made aware of the areas that are mainly to do with where caravans pull up and, outside of Coles, where they, pull up and scrape their catheads onto the footpath before they get back into their vehicles, and along the main route through town, I suppose, is the main areas where I've been notified of where they are, just from, bringing them in from away.
Councillor Birch, question.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Just two questions. One regarding the Blighty Hotel and the cardboard there, why would they not already be classed as a commercial depositor? And my second question was advertising for qualified mechanic in the recruitment. Is that an extra position, or I seem to have seen that advertised quite frequently? Are we running over our mechanics? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. So just in reference to the first one inquiry, can you move page number?
Oh, sorry, page 358.
Yeah.
It says that he's not wanting to sort and flat pack cardboard, so need to follow up on expectations or start charging hotel as commercial depositor of waste.
Yeah, so yeah, that's correct in that they are a commercial depositor and not residential. So we do have the Blighty landfill that the Hotel Blighty Hotel can use, but they are using it as a commercial business. So with the Helicon, with the other areas where we do have cardboard, we request that it goes into the green skip bins. When you get more in the limits, can take it down. So my understanding is that council staff have just been working with the hotel owner about making sure they're flagging, because I can appreciate from the hotel side, they just want to dispose of the cardboard. We'll continue to work with them in terms of making sure that it's flat and reduces the effort on behalf of the council. In terms of the mechanic, it is a position in our structure. It has been for a long time. We've been trying to attract another mechanic for at least the last 2 years. We've found it extremely difficult. We've gone out to advertising a few times for fully qualified mechanics, for third, fourth year apprentices, for first, second year apprentices. So we've sort of tried to get someone into that position. Following a review of sort of where we're at, we've put that back out just as an open position. So on a regular basis, we'll just bring it back up into advertising. So rather than giving it a completion date, of just having that as an open position in the organisation, it does impact on the work that the workshop does. There is some work that we need to put out. We're trying to do as much as we can internally in that area, just we can respond better, and then staff have a very good knowledge of the plan. But yeah, that's the trade-off with that one, is that the mechanics are very busy, and there's more work that's being put out for local businesses.
Questions, Councillor Moore? Two things. Going back to the Blighty Hotel, at what point do you have you exhausted your time allocation to teach a business the ways that we sort of require, and then at what point do you start feeling on that time? And two, to do with the mechanic position, have we approached the high school for a program, to be a part of the program that they have in year 11 and 12, 10, 11 and 12, or I'm sorry, I'm not aware of what the name of it is. There's a program at the high school now where it's instead of going to a subject for the day, they go to training. I'm sorry, I'm not sure what the name of it is.
School-based apprenticeship.
School-based apprenticeship.
Yes. Thank you, yeah. So in terms of the first one, I'll take that on notice, because I'm not aware exactly where those discussions were. We will give them some time. Generally, that will be we have a discussion with our expectations. See if the next time they don't do it, we would reinforce that. Then if they didn't do it again, you're in that generally
3 strikes and you're out. So it's definitely a time for it, but I'll take that on notice and just see in detail where that's up to. Look, in terms of the mechanics, that's yeah, I'll definitely take on board as a great sort of solution to that. With the, my understanding is we haven't talked to the school around that, so that's something we can do, because we definitely want someone in that position. And in the past, when we've advertised that first year apprentice, second year apprentice, probably from us an assumption that we wouldn't pick up that sort of program. It definitely doesn't stop us directly going to them and saying, yes, we have this position, can we work something out?
So, would it be possible to consider, as part of that sponsorship of planes and the youth master, would it be possible to have a small tent set up that we can use it to promote employment opportunities within the council, even in a car simulator or whatever, a great target audience and people coming from all over the place, and would it be something to consider?
It sounds like
I was happy to answer
the general manager.
Well, I think through you, Madam Mayor, there is some really good suggestion. That's a really good suggestion, and I do believe there's a number of people in the community who are interested in even just raising the profile of Deniliquin and Edward River Council region as a great place to work and to try and attract more people here. So we've done a number of initiatives around trying to attract people to come here. We haven't been helped by housing and so forth, but any of those ideas, such as you've suggested there, Deputy Mayor, is a good things to work on. So certainly something that's not stagnant. We're working very hard to try and make us a place that's attractive to come to. For example, just recently we've signed up to become a veteran-friendly employer, which gives us wider access to former military members who may have those skills, such as mechanics and so forth, and we can get it placed up on Canberra-based and international websites and so forth. So we're trying to shake things up a little bit, because attracting and people with skills, and particularly people who have a real affinity for the country and want to move here from the big smoke, is a really good thing to do. So certainly good suggestion. We'll take that as a good suggestion. Councillor Fellows.
Any other questions? Okay, we have a record. They've been great questions. You're on fire. Fantastic questions. Love it. The recommendation is there. Do we have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Moore, Councillor Thorns, are you happy to second that? Does anyone else wish to speak? All those in favour? Carried. All right. Notices of motion now. Questions without notice now. So confidential matters move into confidential. No questions with notice.
A question with notice, Madam Mayor, sorry. When does that question require to be with or on the agenda, or what's the time frame for a question with notice, saying with abandoned questions without notice? Could be no time frame to that.
Through you, Madam Team, the code of meeting practice says 9 days before the council agenda goes out. So you log it in writing to the general manager, and the general manager can only really veto it if it's suggesting something wrong. So that would be the advice, and so if we did want to do things as it passes, that might be one of the things the general manager would say. So, but yeah, so 9 days leading prior to the council.
The notices of motion.
So that leaves really, that's a very long time if an incident occurs or something that we wanted to ask prior to a meeting. That's where questions without notice was an avenue for us to say that. So that I find that quite extraordinary. We would have to wait until the next month.
In the code, the questions without notice isn't there, it's not mentioned. It was an administrative courtesy that I put in. And as I said, it's not mentioned in the code. And it's really meant for those couple of questions like councillor Kogi's one about the weeds and that. It's those sorts of questions. Notice on motion is usually addressing something more of a policy or more substantive sort of response to the council to make. There are also in the code provisions for urgent matters. And so if there's something that's significant that you're going to discuss, then there are provisions under that code of conduct. You would propose to your councillors, I would like to raise the following issue on an urgent basis. You get a seconder, you vote on that to say, yes, we will consider this, and then that's how we proceed. And contact, right.
Can I also reiterate too, I had this conversation with Councillor Pearson in regards to your iPad being your best point of contact as well. So questions can be raised with the GM and your fellow councillors at any time. So feel free to send an email and ask questions.
We don't necessarily get a response. I've had issues accessing mine, it doesn't always come through, I don't have attachment.
Then the next best floor. So feel free to use that, will be available wherever it can. But if we want to move into confidential, somebody needs to move into confidential matters, Councillor Thorne, second, Councillor Moore, stop the live streaming, just please wait. Streaming stops. Excuse me, councillors, live streaming has stopped.
But I'm in a bathroom break.
Yes.